Hello, people. Today I have with me a woman with a wide range of work, spanning from the voice of Blaze the Cat and Wave the Swallow, the first voices, the first voice of Luffy in One Piece, my Valentine, the second voice of my Valentine in Yu-Gi-Oh, Mrs. Erica Schroeder.
Hey guys, how are ya?
I am doing very good, and how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks for asking.
All right, so let's get started. What is it that got you interested in acting?
Well, I was kind of born acting, I guess. I kind of came out of the womb acting. So say yes to my mother. I actually came out dancing. That was my first love, dancing and singing. Basically, being an entertainer was something that always intrigued me and interested in me. And then around age 14, I sort of totally fell in love with Shakespeare and became obsessed with that aspect of acting. So actually, acting for the theater, legit theater, became more of an interest in mine, in addition to musical theater, which I had always loved, and dancing. And I'd always done voices as a kid, brushing my teeth excessively with my brother and my sister, especially my brother. He really liked to goof around in the bathroom and brush our teeth for long periods of times, and we would just make ridiculous faces and voices forever, and that's kind of how my voices started. But to answer your question, kind of always something that was inside of me. It wasn't something that I suddenly realized one day. It was just something intrinsically inside of me since birth, really.
Now, I was curious because I discovered, like, you've also done Broadway work before, which
Yes,
that intrigued me.
yes.
Like, what is it like doing Broadway, like compared to like working behind a mic or heck, even doing like a TV role, like compared to doing like a stage thing?
Oh, well, that's a great question. In terms of the approach of committing to what you're doing, it's exactly the same. Um, Style-wise, it really depends on the piece. There are some anime pieces that are very close to home, and you want it very realistic, like some of the work they do at NYAB Post and stuff like that. And then there's stuff that's a little bit more out there, like a real cartoony cartoon, where you're still committing to the character and making choices that are believable, but they might be a little bit more out there and a little bit more charactery. I used to have an acting teacher that would say to me, can you make this more realistic? And I would say, okay, well, like the homeless guy on the subway who chased me home yesterday was not real. He was real. He was just bigger than life. he was real, but he was a large character. You know what I mean? So I believe that every character is real, whether it be big or small. It's just how much are you committing to it? Are you committing 100%, or are you just like doing a voice and hoping that the character follows? So as far as the differences, it's really the same in terms of commitment. There's some of us in the booth that like to physicalize, and some people that like sit completely still. Like Mark Thompson and I are both like to physicalize when I'm punching someone. While I'm trying not to punch the microphone, I am sort of gesturing into the air like a large punch because it helps me. I don't physicalize everything, like I can't actually run while I'm running, but I do sort of, I might bounce up and down a little bit and sort of make my arms go back and forth because I want to create it as authentically as possible when I'm actually, performing something that is a physical action. So in answer to your question, they're a similar approach, but yes, you don't need the visual with all of it. But as far as committing 100%, yeah, you're committing just as much in the booth as you are on the stage, I would say.
Have you ever actually done that? Have you punched the mic doing that?
I have hit the stand several times. Like sometimes it'll be like boing in the middle of the line. I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I was just getting out of hand or whatever. And most directors don't mind it. They like it because it adds. You want the breath in the action. Occasionally I'll have a director or an engineer that's like, oh, you're breathing too much. Like I don't want to hear the breath. And I'm like, really? I mean, I feel like the breath of the character is half of the performance. When you do like a dub of, I've done like dubs of German films and French films, live action. So you're this character, in 1832, and she's, got her gown on, and she's in an intimate scene with a man, and she's in film. There's not as much talking; it's more visual. So if she looks at him and she just breathes a certain way, you can tell that she's like madly in love with this man. So it's really fun to have those nuances that, just that small, that she does on screen, that you have to put the voice to. And it has to be just the right amount and not too much, so that it doesn't seem over the top. But for me, like in the booth, I feel like, when I'm portraying any type of animated character, it's the same thing. Like the breathing to me, the breath within the character is just as important as what they're actually saying.
And do you remember like what the first voice role you ever got was?
That's a good question. The first, I'll tell you another story that I don't think I've ever told anyone. Before I got my first voice job on television, which was Ultraman Tiga, which was on the Fox box. It was a live-action series where I played the character of Reina. I was in a musical at NYU called Into the Woods. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. I was playing Rapunzel. I was a freshman. I was not supposed to be doing productions as a freshman. It was against the rules, but everybody else was auditioning, and I was like, I want to audition too, and I just happened to get cast, and then I got in a little trouble. But I went ahead and did it, and I was doing some of the sound effects backstage during the performance too. There was, the baby crying, the baker's wife, the baby. Instead of them doing a sound sample, the director found out I did this amazing baby cry, and so they just had me do it live from backstage. That's actually how I got my first voiceover agent. Abrams, artist, was in the audience and represented one of the other actresses in the show, and she was, telling her, Erica did these voices, and she was like, oh my gosh, that was a person, that wasn't a sample. And so I sort of had a voiceover job in a theater job first. It was kind of an interesting story. And then Ultraman Tiga was ultimately my first live-action voiceover job. And I think my first animated job may have been like a guest episode on Pokemon, or my first big role was Lyserg in Shaman King.
Yeah, I'm curious because I had found out when you were on Pokemon. You've been on Pokemon several times, and Megan Hollingshed. I still forget how to pronounce that last name.
I think it's Hollingshead.
Hollingshed.
Yeah. Oh no, without the sh, just with an h. Hollingshead.
Oh, so it's silent. So the S is silent.
I think so.
I didn't know that.
Maybe
Thank you
not.
for finally clearing that up.
Maybe I'm the one who's been saying it wrong. And Megan, if I am, I apologize.
I don't know, but she was the first voice in Nurse Joy, and then she went off to LA, and you took over. It's like, what's it like when you take over another role from someone? Like if you knew her or not?
I didn't actually know Megan. We may have passed in the halls at some point. She's supposed to be super sweet. I'm actually her Facebook friend. We don't really know each other in person. But actually, she had two big roles. She had My Valentine and Nurse Joy. I did not know that she had both roles. All I knew was that I was coming in to audition to possibly take over for two different roles. I didn't know they were the same woman. I didn't know where this woman was going or why she was being replaced, I think, until after. And I just happened to get both of her roles. I know they had multiple women come in and audition for both. And I think that it may have been a combination of things. Number one, I am a mimic. I'm good at impersonating. I impersonate mostly male cartoons, which people do not know, and not even like boys, like men, and puppets and Muppets and things like that. I've always loved to do that. So maybe my natural inclination to be a mimic and to know how to do that, to impersonate. And then Possibly, quite possibly, Megan and I have like somewhat similar vocal cords. We may have a similar tone naturally, that therefore my tone lent itself more to her characters than someone else's. I don't really know. But I know that they wanted an actual voice match for the auditions. They play her performance for me, cues that she had done in the past from different episodes to sort of give me an idea of what she sounded like. And then my trick when I do this kind of thing, when I'm trying to learn a new voice that already exists, that didn't make any sense. When I'm trying to impersonate a voice that already exists, I talk along with it. Even if I don't have the lines in front of me, sometimes I'll be doing something, from French to English, and the character is talking like this, and I will talk along like this at the same time, and I will try to capture what it is that the character is talking like. And I'll try and be as similar to the character I'm hearing as possible, and I'll just talk BS. I'll say anything that comes to my head to sort of capture the rhythm, capture the melody, capture the texture, capture the tone, anything I can. And then you have to take these new lines that have never been said before and incorporate all that into it. And that becomes the hard part. It's not actually mimicking an actual line. Let's say the character is like, the Twiddlebug mom from the Muppets. I know we will walk in the rain. Right? And I have the line. I've heard her say, I know we will walk in the rain. It's easy to mimic the actual line, I know we will walk in the rain. But now what if she says, and we will not get wet because we have umbrellas. And we will not get wet because we have umbrellas. So I have to take that, what I've discovered from that line that actually existed, and incorporate it in a brand new dialogue. And not just the voice, but also the character. So it's a challenge, but it's something I've always loved to do. So in this business, you'll get put on like lists. Every casting director, every director, every agent has like lists. And people are on either it's a mental list or a visual list or an email list of people that represent different characters. So like I'm on the mom list. Anytime there's like a mom character, like you gotta call Erica in because she sounds so maternal. I don't know what it is.
Like a typecast list, kind of.
Yes, exactly. I think everybody has their lists of, villains. Oh, you got to call Mark in. You got to call Mark Thompson in. Little boys. Oh, definitely call Allison and call Erica. It's great to get on as many lists as possible. You don't really know what list you're on, but you kind of get a feel for it after a while when they keep calling you in for the same types of characters. But anyhow, we were talking about impersonating, right, and sort of taking over roles.
Right.
It was cool. I liked it. I always kind of, hopefully we'll meet Megan one day and run into her. But we honor the performance of the past, and then sometimes we're asked to bring something new to it. Like Eric Stewart wanted me to add something a little bit new to my Valentine, and he sort of pushed it after the first few episodes into a slightly different direction, just ever so slight. He said, let's just try this, just because it's you and you're somebody different. And so that happens too. But it was a cool experience.
Now, there's a bit of a controversial question, but are you like did you ever really watch any of the stuff you were in?
Oh, at the beginning of my career, I usually watched the first episode or two of everything. I tried to, just to sort of see how it all came together with the other characters, and just to see how, like, if my character arc was kind of working, because oftentimes you do not get to read the whole script. If it's a prelay thing, usually you do get the whole script in advance. You get to read it. You get to study relationships between characters. You get to study the arc of the character, what's happening. But oftentimes you are, doing what's called ADR, automated dialogue replacement, and you do not have the rest of the script at hand. You do not have the rest of the story, so you are relying solely on the director and what they bring to the table and what they tell you is happening right before, right after. How are you feeling? So oftentimes I would watch the first episode or two to sort of see if that was coming across, and I felt it would kind of inform me. But usually it was like 6 months after, however many months the delay was. So not always. I did watch a lot of Pokemon because my kids love Pokemon now. So it's like they're going on Netflix now and watching Pokemon Black and White. So my husband was like, I came home the other day from recording, and he was like, hey, are you this character, like this blonde hair and like this green hat on her head? I'm like, Bianca? He's like, yeah. He's like, the kids were watching it, and I heard I heard a voice that sounded like you coming from the other room, and I was like, oh. So is that kind of what you were looking for as far as the answer is concerned?
It was going to be a question that leads in because you worked at 4Kids. That was
correct.
That's the main lead in. Were you aware of like some of the changes that they had made to the anime that they had worked on?
Not during the beginning, no. Thankfully, I was not aware because I think that, I tried to stay out of that. It's not really, I'm not a producer, I'm not a director, I am just the actor. I shouldn't say just the actor. The actor is extremely important. But you are there to, yes, honor the character. You are there to create your own version of the character. You are there to honor the director, and you are there to honor the producer. So you're wearing a lot of hats. But just like Luffy. But you're wearing a lot of hats at the same time, and you have to decide which hat is the most important at that moment. Not all the time. Sometimes you can please everyone across the board all the time, but sometimes, you would like to go in a certain direction that the producer doesn't want you to go into. But guess what? At the end of the day, the producer is the one that pays you, and the producer is the one that hired you, and so you have two choices. You can say, no, I will not do that, and walk away from the role, or you can modify your choice and give the producer what they want and keep the job. So I wasn't aware of a lot of those things, and therefore it was really good for me to keep my actor hat on and to move forward with the story that I was given and to portray that story that I was given and not to know about controversy surrounding it, deletions from it. There were certain things that after the fact I found out about that might have affected certain things. But thankfully, because certain shows were on at a certain time for a certain audience, they had to adhere to a certain standard of rules. And those rules dictated what was shown and what was not shown. So it wasn't always like they wanted to mess around with things and, make people angry. A lot of the times it was, how do we bring this to the masses at 9 o'clock in the morning? Well, the way to do that is to take this out and take that out. See what I'm saying?
Right. Like, shoot. I had a brain fart again.
That's all right. I'm guessing you have more questions that are going to lead in a certain direction that I'm going to guess where you're going to.
Well, the next one is because again, you were the New York version of Luffy. You were, I want to say, technically.
Ooh, I like that, the New York version. Yeah.
Like technically, you were the first voice. There was like a dub in Singapore, but nobody bothers to acknowledge that one. But how do you feel about
Chuck
the whole?
Powers. I'll acknowledge him. Hello, Chuck.
Yeah. Hey, how do you feel about the whole like Funimation dub? Like if you've seen anything from it, like the one they're doing in Texas.
I have not seen much of it. I think a fan posted an excerpt from the first episode on my page once. How do I feel about it being done, or how do I feel about it performance-wise?
Like, how do you feel about it being done, like compared to like when you did it?
Well, I think it's great that it was being done. I think like if anybody ever wants to do something another time, or put their stamp on it, or give their version of it, or try and be more truthful to the original, anytime anybody wants to do that, I say go for it. There's no reason why something shouldn't be explored more than once. I had no problem with it, no issue with it whatsoever. I was aware that the version that I worked on was not as true to the original. I was aware that it was skewed towards a younger audience. But the cool thing about that, there is one cool thing, believe it or not, and that was that I could sort of introduce it to my kids if I wanted. I got a hold of some of the early episodes, and my son flipped his lid over it. I mean, loved it. And I didn't have to be like, explain to him why the man was smoking, or why are they acting dizzy, or, yes, we bleed and, people die. I didn't have to have those kind of conversations with him because I had the child-friendly version that I could show him. Yeah. So when he grows up, if he wants to watch the Funimation version, he can watch the Funimation version. He can get the more accurate version. He can get the all of the storylines that are missing, things like that. It may not have been the best choice for them to pick that property for that time slot, but I think everybody learned a lesson from it, and I think they gave it their best shot. I don't think there was really much more they could have done to try and make it work during that time frame for that audience. But as I've discovered years later, because now my fan base is grown up, and I'm meeting them at conventions, that a lot of them enjoyed that version. I was delightfully surprised to learn there are a lot of people out there that loved it and were happy to be introduced to it at that age. So it wasn't a total loss. It may not have been the most accurate version, and a lot of them watched both versions and have enjoyed transitioning from one to the other. So I don't think it was a total loss, and I'm glad that Funimation was able to take it and to and to really sort of show an American audience what it actually completely is in its entirety. So I think that's a good thing.
Now, this is another one because you were both Blaze and Wave in the Sonic games, and what was the reason behind the whole recasting? Like, if you actually know the reason.
Oh, I'm not sure. Other than I believe, I'll just give an example of different reasons why suddenly there's a whole new cast. Usually, it's because the people in charge, the people at the top, say, our studio is moving to this city. We want to be closer to this city. So basically, it's usually we're trying out a whole other city. It's going to another recording studio. Sometimes it's because someone underbid someone else. Sometimes it's because they want to change. Sometimes it might be because they're not happy with performances. I've never known that to be the case. But I think there's always a multitude of reasons, but usually it's because they're moving studios. So in that case, it was no longer being done in New York. And then I did hear a story that Mike Pollock actually got an audition. Mike actually told me this. I think it was so funny that he actually auditioned, got a call from his agent asking him to audition for, the character that he already played. And he was like,
I interviewed him, and I think he said he didn't even know it was Eggman or something like that, at first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he didn't know at first, if I can remember correctly. That was my first interview, so I don't remember.
But I don't even know why that happened. I think, honestly, it was just sort of somehow, things can be done remotely now. So sometimes if it's not a dub and it's like a prelay, people can be on a different coast and work on the same show. There's a couple shows that do that, and there's a couple shows that don't, because sometimes it just gets too complicated. But take, for instance, NYAV Post. did a beautiful film that I don't know if I can talk about or not, so I'm not going to. But they cast half of it in L.A. and half of it in New York. They auditioned every character in both cities, and they picked their favorites. And then, they started in L.A. and then finished in New York. So when they do it, it's really cool. They actually fly into town for it. But a lot of studios will just direct over the cans, in your headphones. I've worked on a lot of video games where the director is in L.A. and I'm in New York. And then I have like an intermediary director in the room with me who's engineering as well and sort of facilitating or co-directing, depending on how they want to credit it. And that happens a lot too. And that happened with Turtles, actually. I did the two guest episodes on Turtles. Sue Blue was in L.A., and all the actors were in New York. So she was always over the phone or over the headphones to all the actors. She was never there in person for the show, directing the show.
And, this is the last question, but you've also played, outside of humans, you've played other Pokemon on the show Pokemon.
Correct.
Is that weird? Like, is it weird to just have to repeatedly say and do the same thing?
No. I recently had someone ask me this question at a convention, and I tried to explain it to them. It's actually pretty cool. It's actually very similar to an acting exercise that you learn if you study at a university. I studied at NYU. Everybody does this at some point where they're talking in gibberish and they're trying to convey something to someone else, but they can't use the actual words that they're saying. In the script, it actually usually has what the Pokemon is actually saying. Like, I can't do it for you because I'm under contract, but if the character is saying, let's say I'm on some show that's not Pokemon, it's called Bliggydon, and on Bliggydon, I'm playing a character named Squishy Fee, okay? And Squishy Fee is trying to say, get away from my food, but can only use the word Squishy Fee to say, get away from my food. Then Squishy Fee is going to go, Squishy Fee, Squishy Fee. Right? But as Squishy Fee is introducing himself to everyone, it's his first time on screen, Squishy Fee is going to say, Squishy Fee, or, hi, my name is Squishy Fee, nice to meet you. Squishy Fee, Squishy Fee. It's every line is done separately for every episode. Nothing is pulled. The only performances that are pulled is the original actress for Pikachu, and then I think just a couple of other ones sometimes are pulled. But yeah, it's actually awesome. I love it. Every line that we're saying has a purpose. We're not just randomly saying the name. If you watch the scenes, you'll see. Like if the character's fighting with another character, and it's then the characters get together and have peace and harmony at the end, and Squishy Fee wants to say that he loves, Boogly Boo, then, he'll be like, Squishy Fee, Squishy, However, and it's going to be completely different than if, they're telling Boogly Boo to get lost. So it's actually an acting exercise that, the really good, great acting teachers have everybody do at some point in their career. Because let's say you're an actor working on Shakespeare for the first time, but you've never done Shakespeare before. They do that exercise a lot for people like that because they'll tell that person to take the Shakespeare text and put it in modern language. So, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Might be like, Romeo, where are you? I'm looking for you. Make yourself appear. Come on. Where the heck are you? Instead of, but, in a more romantic way, in a less modern way, could be something else. But voicing a Pokemon is really fun. Sometimes you can they'll ask you to copy the original to make it as similar as possible to the original voice. And sometimes we'll say, we want to try something a little different. So just give us something that you feel represents this character. Or we wanted you to make it more like a goat than the original actor did. And it's fun because it's never one type of animal that it's inspired by. It's usually two. So sometimes you can sort of be inspired by two different animals, and you have to make it have some human qualities, but it's not a human. So I enjoy it a lot, and I think most of us that have worked on Pokemon, that have voiced Pokemon, really love it and consider it a fun challenge.
All right, and I gotta say, thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you for your patience. I know sometimes it takes a while to get schedules to come together.
Right.
So I
I gotta say,
appreciate the interview.
is there any advice you can give to people that would be interested in the voice acting industry or just acting in general?
Do as much acting as you can, every medium, film, theater, voiceover. Get on the stage, take classes. Don't focus on just one thing, because acting is acting no matter what you're doing. It's like I said, you can modify, there's changes, but, within even the stage, the genre of stage, you have theater of the absurd, and then you have classical theater. And then you have David Mamet. So there's all different styles on stage, there's all different styles on film, and there's all different styles in animation. So the more you can dig into and the more you can do it. And don't expect to be paid right away. Sometimes you'll be paid and sometimes you won't. Don't be a snob about it, I have been in this business for years, and guess what? Sometimes I still do stuff for free because I just want to do it. I mean, I'm not saying stuff for television that's going to make a ton of money. That's probably not a good idea. I'm saying in the theater, if someone's writers are developing a piece and they don't have the money to produce it right away, and they're working on the script and they're trying to get it in front of producers, you can't expect them always to pay you $1,000 to come in for your time. It's okay to say, yeah, you can have 3 days of my time for free, because you might fall in love with my performance and you might never be able to see this role being done by someone else again, so that you're kind of getting yourself in on the ground level of developing this character, and then also getting these people that wrote this to fall in love with you and not want to use anybody else. So there are advantages to doing things at the beginning and doing things for free. And do community theater. It's not beneath you. If you've never acted in your life, you can't expect to, go straight to Broadway. Start with basic stuff and see where it takes you.